Don't you just love negativity? All the negativity going on right now in the news, people complaining about this and mad about that, and protesting about this and protesting about that. Well, I've got some more negativity. We're going to talk about negative numbers here tonight. Um, and so I want to give you a couple of examples of what negative numbers are and why we start talking about negative numbers as we lead into algebra. So let's take a look here, okay? First of all, I want you to look on the screen here and see that we're in chapter 1 point, actually this is 1.6. So if I can kind of take my pen here and correct that, but it really should be chapter 1.6, all right? So I'm going to try to draw a 6 there. Crazy pen. Okay. Now, um, there's a number line here. So you probably want to stop the screen, stop the video, and then copy this down, then turn it back on again, okay? So I've got a number line here. And what I did is I took my 0 and my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here that are positive numbers. I made them red so they stand out differently from the negative numbers, okay? Everything to the left of 0 is a negative number, okay? And so a concept to kind of grasp here is we start calling these things integers. When we start talking about things on a number line, we're talking about integers, okay? Many people are used to this kind of thing. They're kind of used to some kind of a thermometer where you have like 0, like let's just say it keeps going down here, and everything above it is 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay, now that's positive, and then we're aware of the fact that everything below the number line is kind of negative degrees when we're talking about temperature, okay? That's something that a lot of people are kind of familiar with, is a thermometer and talking about negative degrees in temperature. Well, the integers, when they start saying integers, this key word right here, integers, means we're talking about all numbers that are both positive and negative. And so that's why it's a different term than just, why don't we just call them all numbers? Because now we have negative numbers. And so they start using that term integers, okay? Um, Now, a negative number by definition is anything that's less than 0, okay? Less than my 0 here. And here is a brand new concept for some of you. It's this thing called absolute value here on my screen. Absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. Okay, and that's really key, is we're really just asking for the distance from 0. So in normal circumstances, your absolute value will always be just expressed as a positive number. Okay, so for instance, if I over here in orange, I've got 2 lines around it. You see the 2 lines here? That's how you express absolute value. When you're talking about absolute value, it's the distance numbers are from 0. And so if they ask you what's if it looked like this, the 2 lines around, what's the absolute value of -5? You would say, well, how far is -5 from 0? I'm going to go over here on my line here. It's kind of circle of it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 away from 0. So its answer is expressed as a positive term. Okay. What is the absolute value of 5? Well, how far is it from 0? You can count real quick and go, yep, it's going to be 5 away from 0. What's the absolute value of -17 down here? Okay, well, it would be 17 away from 0, so it's just going to be 17. Okay, so like I said, absolute value is almost always expressed as a positive number. And another term is opposites. If they ask you for the opposite of, say, -2 here, what's the opposite of -2? You would say, well, it's 2. It's called an opposite. What's the opposite of -4? 4. What's the opposite of 5? -5. Okay, so when you run into that in your homework or in WAMAP, you'll see those terms. All right, next concept is, let's practice some absolute values. Okay, for instance, what is the opposite of, now you'll notice this question says, what's the opposite of? It's not asking for absolute value. What is the opposite of -8? Well, I would just say, can you guess what's the opposite of it? It's just going to be 8. Okay, we just got through talking about that. Find the absolute value here of -11. Okay, number 2 here. Well, it's just 11 away from 0. That was pretty easy. What is the sign of 24? This one's asking for, number 3 is asking, what's the sign of 24 here? And sign has to do with the, is it positive or negative? Okay, is it, in the case of 24, you'll notice there's no negative here. So its sign is just positive. You might just put positive, okay? And then what is the absolute value of 24? Well, again, it's just 24 from 0. So that's what I'm going to put down is 24. All right. Simplify. Now it gets a little bit confusing here. Let's do this number 5 first. Simplify the negative absolute value of 6. Do you recall a couple minutes ago I mentioned that in almost every case when you're dealing with absolute value, it'll always be expressed as a positive number. Here is the exception. Inside the absolute value symbols here, the 2 lines, I know that the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. But this question has a negative in front of it. So what is the negative absolute value of negative 6? Your answer in this case would be negative 6. Okay? It's a little tricky, but you see the double negative there with the absolute value. That's why that's negative. Let's jump now back up to number 4. You'll notice I've got parentheses here. Parentheses means something different in math. Usually you're multiplying something when you have parentheses next to it. So this is not absolute value. It's kind of like a trick question kind of review. But whenever you got parentheses and you have a double negative like that, it becomes a positive. So the answer would be, if I were asked to simplify, it's just 6. Okay. And again, pay a close attention here to, you see it's parentheses, it's not straight up and down lines like absolute value, okay? And again, a double negative becomes a positive normally. All right, and then what if they said, how would you express 100 degrees below 0? Is that a positive or a negative number? What would you put? 100 degrees below 0 would be just minus 100 degrees, okay? 30 degrees, period. That would be a positive 30. 30 degrees below 0, it would be a negative 30 degrees, okay? Jumping now to a little bit of a homework help. You're going to run into something like this on number 7 in your homework for this week, for this assignment. And I don't know if you recall from the past, but oftentimes teachers will give you this symbol right here. It's the greater than or less than symbol. And the open sign here, if it's an alligator with teeth here, okay, these are its teeth sticking out of this thing here. If it's an alligator, the open end is always pointing to the larger number. The small end, the closed end here, is always pointing to the smaller number. So open, large, smaller end to the small, okay? So they're asking you, they'll give something like this, and they say you can use the number line, but you've got 6.5 and 6 2/3. Which one is greater? Okay. Well, they both have 6s, but I know that 2/3 of something is more than a half. So you would answer something like this. Okay. Open. I didn't do a good job of drawing that in the box. But how about letter B here? -3 and -4. Which one is greater? Okay. And so they kind of wanted you to think about this like on a number line. So if I had my numbers here, and I had -1, 2, and 3, and 4, okay? Which one is greater? Which is -3 and -4? Well, here's -3 on this spot right here, and here's -4 on this spot right here. Which one is greater? Okay. Well, -3 is more because it's closer to 0 here. It's actually worth more, okay? And so I would go like this. You know, I would draw my greater than or less than symbol like that, okay? And then that brings up another one, letter C. -5 is, which one's greater, or -5.2? Well, -5 is closer to 0. It's greater. So that's how I would do that one there, okay? Now you can, like I said, you can use a number line here, draw them out and practice with your numbers, but that's kind of up to you if you want to do that to help you out a little bit. So, all right, that is a little bit of help with chapter 1.6, which is dealing with integers, and also a little bit of help with your your homework. I hope you found that helpful. And be sure and ask if you have any questions.